a boy thing.
I formed a company with Mr. Kazunari Tomi, and the company's name is Studio Alex. We went to Game Arts to promote our business, and we told them we would like to make an RPG game with a compelling story that was something different from other games that existed at that time. After playing the Lunar game, if people would say, we have to live in a more positive fashion, live our lives looking to the future, that is the kind of game I wanted to make. This was the motive that inspired the Lunar game.
You had this great story, these characters that you cared about, and you were interested to see how they got together at the end, Alex and Luna. It played out more like a movie than a game because of the animated sequences along the way. It kept getting the player back into the game.
A large percentage of the games that come to the US originate in Japan. They start in Japan and they're reworked for the US audience. We were the first independent CD-ROM publisher in the US. So I'd heard about Lunar, and I really had no preconception about what it was. I was thinking of some sort of moon game.
When we saw the Sega CD version of Lunar, we knew that that was a game we wanted to do. It was a great game.
They had a CD-ROM system that was single speed, 150K a second. You could only spool so much data off of that. So you couldn't get really involved animations. You had a limited amount of video memory, a limited color palette. There was lots of limits.
Games with good stories cannot be made without CD-ROM. And because of that, Lunar started with Sega CD, then a Saturn version, and then the PlayStation version. Whenever there's a better means of expression available, we will use it to express things better, and that's why we made the PlayStation version. People might ask a question such as, which version is the authentic version? Sega CD or Sony PlayStation? Or is there any difference? But I think they both reflect the story of Lunar. I believe the Lunar world actually exists. The person who tells the story may change. Before, Mr. Sega CD tended to often forget things, and he didn't pay attention to the details of things. But nonetheless, he was the storyteller for the first Lunar. This time, Mr. PlayStation, who is more sensible, smarter, and has a better memory, with more capacity for expression, told the history of the Lunar world. The first storyteller sometimes forgot some of the characters, or told the ending in rather finalistic terms, while the new storyteller told us much more.
My friend.
Since the Sega CD version of Lunar to the PlayStation version of Lunar, we have rewritten the latter half completely. The biggest difference is the description of the heroine, Luna. In the Sega CD version, where the main character, Alex, leaves the island, they part. If that's the case, though, we felt that people might not feel sympathetic toward the heroine, so we changed that in the revised scenario. We also increased the number of characters in the game. The development of the enemies was a little weak, so we added some enemies. I believe there were only 2 or 3 minutes of animation for the original CD version, but now there is about an hour of animation. As for the voice actors, in the first version of Lunar there were only 4 actors, but now there are about 15 voice actors. In terms of imagery, there was quite a bit of upgrading, so there's almost no comparison.
There's been quite a few changes actually to the scenario in Lunar. Definitely the characters are older. There's no age actually given, but they're definitely older than the first one. And I think that was to strengthen the love aspect of it. But also, another reason they were aged, as I understand it, is because the people that had played the original had aged too. And so they wanted to keep it so they could still relate to these characters. Wokusan, his art designs are great. Huge fan of what he's actually done with the Lunar characters and what he's also done with anime, because he doesn't just do game characters. He actually is involved with manga and anime. He's done some very popular stuff in Japan, like Giant Robo animation series.
As for special training, I really haven't done anything such as going to a specialized animation school or learning from someone else in particular. Everything I learned by actually doing the work.
その時自分が、
To design the costumes, I suppose I was inspired by what I saw in movies, magazines, and people around the city.
ルーナのスカーフなんかは当時
For instance, the scarf Luna wears is an idea that was inspired by a nurse's outfit at the dentist I was going to at that
出
time.
ましてこれは
This is the storyboard for the Silver Star story.
本手ですねでざっと
There are about 45 to 46 scenes here.
でこれで
Once this is accepted, we start the actual animation by placing orders for the scenes to animators.
今回のリメイク版のルナからはデジタルペイント
For the remake of Lunar, digital paint was used instead of celluloid.
上がってきた動画を
The drawings were first scanned and then painted with a specialized software.
ということで、一連の動く絵ができるわけですねでそれができた
And sequenced as movie clips. Once that is done, the next steps are taken. Editing, retaking, and soundtracking, just like any other animation.
あとの作業は、普通のアニメーションと同じような流れで行われています。戦場のルーナっていうシーンでかなり
Computer graphics, CG, was used a lot in the scene of Luna on the boat, such as this part where the ship moves.
動くところとか
The ocean is a regular 2D background. The ship is mostly all
海とかは
CG.
これ二次元の普通の背景なんですけども手書きの
Also, these night bugs, somewhat like lightning bugs, are done in CG.
一種の 3D のその利点っていうのは手書きでは
The advantage of 3D is that it is possible to create objects that are difficult to draw by hand.
ね